Mormonism was born in the shadows of 19th century America, at a time when religious revivalism and occultism were colliding. In 1830, a young man named Joseph Smith claimed that an angel named Moroni led him to golden plates buried in a hill, plates only he could see and only he could translate. These plates became the Book of Mormon, a sacred text said to recount ancient civilizations in the Americas and Jesus Christ's visit to the New World. Members are constantly interviewed by church leaders about personal behaviors, including intimate questions about their sexual purity, masturbation, and thoughts. Children as young as 12 years old are asked if they're morally clean. These interviews are often done alone, behind closed doors, with older men in authority. It's a religion built not just on faith but on surveillance, shame, and fear of exile. Perhaps the most controversial and eerie element of early Mormonism is polygamy, the practice of plural marriage revealed secretly by Joseph Smith. While he publicly denied it, Smith privately married over 30 women, including teenagers as young as 14 and women who were already married to other men. He told his followers that God would destroy him if he didn't comply and warned women that their eternal salvation depended on obeying the prophet's wishes. This wasn't just religious belief, it was sexual manipulation cloaked in divine authority. Though the mainstream LDS Church officially banned polygamy in 1890, it never renounced the doctrine itself, merely stopped practicing it to comply with U.S. law. Many of Smith's original teachings about eternal polygamy remain in sacred texts today. When the mainstream church backed away from plural marriage, splinter groups broke off, determined to preserve the original gospel. These groups, especially the FLDS Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, would go on to become some of the most feared and secretive cults in modern America. Mormonism began in the early 1800s, at a time when America was obsessed with the supernatural seances, treasure hunting, and folk magic. And at the heart of this movement was Joseph Smith, a young man who claimed he could see hidden worlds through a magical seer stone. According to Smith, an angel named Moroni appeared to him and led him to a set of golden plates buried in a hill near his home in upstate New York. These plates, Smith said, contained the true gospel of Jesus Christ and a record of ancient civilizations in the Americas. No one else saw the plates, not physically, but Smith said he translated them by divine power, producing a new holy book, the Book of Mormon. The story was strange, and the world it described was stranger. It told of Jewish tribes that sailed to the Americas, Jesus appearing in the New World after his resurrection, and eternal battles between cursed and blessed bloodlines. From the beginning, there were whispers. Whispers about Smith's magical practices, his obsession with polygamy, and the way he rewrote divine command whenever it suited him. Still, followers gathered, and the movement grew. But even then, darkness clung to the edges of this new faith. Mormonism introduced a very different idea of God than most Christians were used to. God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost were not one being, but three separate, physical entities. And humans, if obedient enough, could become gods themselves in the afterlife, ruling over their own planets with their eternal spouses, creating spirit children and kingdoms without end. But to reach this divine reward, you had to follow the rules. Every rule. The church didn't just tell members what to believe, it told them how to live, how to dress, how to date, how many children to have, what beverages they could drink, and even what underwear to wear. From the time they're baptized at age 8, Mormons are monitored and judged for their worthiness. Teenagers are brought into closed-door interviews with male leaders and asked intrusive, often deeply inappropriate questions about masturbation, sexual thoughts, or whether they've stayed pure. The deeper you go into the church, the tighter the grip becomes. And for those who disobey, social exile, broken families, eternal separation, the fear of being cut off not just from the church, but from your own children in the afterlife keeps many trapped in line. One of the darkest stains in Mormonism's history is its obsession with polygamy. In secret, Joseph Smith began marrying multiple women even while he publicly denied it. Some of these women were shockingly young, just 14 years old. Others were already married to Smith's closest friends. He claimed that God commanded him to take these wives, and that if he disobeyed, an angel with a flaming sword would destroy him. To the women, he said, their salvation depended on submitting to him. If they refused, they risked eternal damnation. It was divine blackmail, and the church followed suit. Dozens of early Mormon leaders took plural wives. Women were told this was a test of their faith to share their husbands, to bear children in spiritual obedience, and to suppress jealousy for the glory of heaven. When the U.S. government cracked down on polygamy in the late 1800s, the mainstream LDS Church officially banned it, but only to avoid federal punishment. The doctrine itself was never revoked. Even today, church teachings imply that in heaven, faithful men will have multiple wives. It's a doctrine that lingers in shadow, reworded but never truly erased. When the LDS Church tried to distance itself from polygamy, Breakaway Sex rose up to preserve the original truth. These groups, especially the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints FLDS, would take Mormon teachings to terrifying extremes. In isolated desert towns, far from the eyes of the law, FLDS leaders built miniature kingdoms ruled by self-declared prophets. These men controlled every aspect of life. Girls were married off in secret ceremonies, sometimes to much older men and sometimes to relatives. Families were separated by divine decree. Dissent was crushed. Education was stunted. Outsiders were considered enemies. The most infamous of these prophets was Warren Jeffs, a man who claimed to speak directly with God. He had over 70 wives, many of them underage. In chilling recordings, he told these girls that they were fulfilling God's will by submitting to his desires. He was eventually arrested and convicted of child sexual assault, but his followers still revere him. Even behind prison walls, his voice echoes through their lives like a ghost that never leaves. These towns are not faith communities. They are prisons. And the crimes committed there were done in the name of God. Even outside of the FLDS, the mainstream LDS Church's teachings around sexuality have caused deep emotional damage. Mormonism's purity culture is strict and unyielding. No sex before marriage. No touching. No impure thoughts. No forgiveness unless you confess everything to your bishop, an older man who acts as judge and spiritual gatekeeper. Women are told their worth is tied to their modesty. Men are warned that any sexual sin will haunt them forever. Many ex-Mormons describe their teenage years as filled with guilt, fear, and secret shame. Some developed eating disorders, depression, or suicidal thoughts. Others were taught that if they were raped, they were now broken in the eyes of God. This is not spirituality. It's spiritual abuse, dressed in white shirts and clean smiles. Mormon temples are the beating heart of the religion's most secretive rituals. These buildings are off limits to outsiders and even many members. Only those who pass rigorous worthiness interviews may enter, and what happens inside is rarely spoken about. In hidden rooms lit by artificial sunlight, members perform sacred ceremonies meant to prepare them for the afterlife. They wear special robes. They recite the oaths of secrecy. They perform ritual gestures, learn symbolic handshakes, and simulate passing through a heavenly veil. In one of the most unique practices, members are baptized on behalf of the dead, immersing themselves in water while reciting names of ancestors or strangers, sometimes Holocaust victims. For some, it feels sacred, but for many ex-members, these experiences feel eerie, surreal, and disorienting. The rituals have changed over the years, but their secrecy remains. The Church insists these ceremonies are divine, but to outsiders and even some insiders they resemble the arcane rites of a closed society obsessed with control. In remote FLDS compounds, years of isolation and genealogical control have led to devastating genetic consequences. In some communities, a rare disorder known as fumarase deficiency causing severe mental and physical disabilities has appeared with shocking frequency. This disease is now known as the FLDS disease. These children are not victims of random fate. They are the result of a culture that prizes spiritual bloodlines over human well-being. Marriages between cousins, forced unions, generational trauma passed down not just through belief, but through DNA. It's not just a haunting legacy, it's a living nightmare for those born into it. To be clear, not every Mormon believes or participates in these controversial practices. Many are kind, generous people who find peace and purpose in their faith. They go about their lives quietly, believing in family, service, and goodness. The stories of abuse, deception, repression, and trauma are not rumors. They are testimonies, spoken by those who lived through it and dared to leave the church. Behind the clean smiles and bright chapels lies a much darker truth. Thanks for diving into the shadows with me, you curious, twisted, and beautifully eerie souls. My name is Penny Flick with Kreep-ish. Share your thoughts below. We're just scratching the surface of true crime, history's mysteries, and all things hauntingly fascinating. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and always remember, the truth is stranger than fiction.